It's 1 a.m. You should be asleep. But instead, you're lying in the dark, replaying an email you sent at 2:47 this afternoon. Not a big email, nothing dramatic, just a reply to a coworker about a meeting time. 3 sentences. You hit send, went back to work, and then, somewhere around dinner, it started. Did that come across as cold? Should you have added a comma after "works for me"? What if they read the tone wrong? You're not passive-aggressive. Or are you? There was that thing in 2019. And now it's 1 a.m. and you're building a case file out of punctuation. Your brain isn't broken. It just never learned how to stand down. Here's what nobody tells you about being an overthinker. It was never about the email. The email is just where your brain decided to park tonight. Last week, it was the slight pause your manager made before saying, "sounds good" on a Zoom call, which your brain filed, archived, and cross-referenced against every similar pause going back 3 years. The week before, it was a text from a friend who always uses exclamation points. This one didn't. You filed that under "something's wrong." And here's what separates you from someone who just worries a lot. You don't just notice these things. You draft responses in your head, run simulations of conversations that haven't happened, then run simulations of the simulations. By the time you're done, the actual situation, the 3-sentence email, the momentary pause, barely resembles what your brain has constructed around it. A normal person sends the email, closes the laptop. That's it. You send the email, immediately reread it, spot something, open the sent folder, close it. Open it again. Wonder if rereading it this many times says something about you. Then lie awake at 1 a.m., wondering if the comma was wrong. So why won't your brain stop doing this? Most people treat overthinking like a bad habit, something to just cut out, like doom scrolling before bed. But your brain is not doing something random. It's doing something it was trained to do in a situation where that training no longer applies. Your brain runs a constant background process. Researchers call it the default mode network, mental activity that switches on the moment you stop focusing on the outside world. For most people, it hums quietly. For overthinkers, it runs at full volume. Introspection, social replay, pattern recognition across years of memory. Not malfunction. Overcapacity in one specific direction. The question is why? Research on anxious attachment gives us the clearest answer. When children grow up in environments where the people around them are inconsistent, not dangerous, not unkind, just unpredictable, their brains develop hypervigilance. A hair trigger alert system. If you can't predict when the mood in the house is safe versus tense, when your words will land fine versus land wrong, the only rational response is to never stop scanning. Read every signal. Think several steps ahead. Always. A meta-analysis covering nearly 9,000 children found that anxious attachment has a consistent, measurable link to anxiety that follows people straight into adulthood. Not from dramatic events, often from ordinary, low-grade uncertainty, never quite knowing what you were walking into. Your brain learned to think ahead as protection. It was smart, and it probably worked. The problem is, it never got the memo that the environment changed. And here's something researchers found that might connect some dots. The same mental loop runs across depression, anxiety, PTSD, and insomnia. Same mechanism, different contents. If you've suspected your overthinking is related to your sleep problems, or the way you spiral before big decisions, you weren't wrong. It's the same process, showing up in different rooms. Psychologist Susan Nolen-Hoeksema spent decades studying the difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection moves. You think, you arrive somewhere, you reach a direction. Rumination circles. Same thought, slightly different framing, no new destination. And crucially, her research found that rumination doesn't process difficult emotions. It preserves them, keeps them active, are running hotter. You weren't problem-solving at 1 a.m. You were rehearsing the problem. Those aren't the same thing. And your brain was probably never told the difference. But here's the part that actually keeps the loop running, the piece almost nobody talks about. Most overthinkers don't just ruminate. They believe, somewhere underneath all of it, that ruminating is working. Psychologists call these positive metacognitive beliefs about rumination, which is a clinical way of saying, part of you is convinced that if you think about this long enough, from enough angles, you'll land on the framing that finally makes it okay. So you keep going, not because you're stuck, because you believe the answer is just around the next corner of the thought. It isn't. But that belief is what makes the loop self-sustaining. You're not failing to stop. You're not stopping because you think continuing is still doing something useful. And there's one more thing to sit with. And the overthinkers who pride themselves on deep empathy, on reading people, on caring about how their words land, need to hear this. Sometimes you're not reading the other person. You're reading the version of them you've constructed inside your head. The coworker who paused before, sounds good. You don't know what she was thinking. You know what you think she was thinking, filtered through your history, and every person who ever made you feel like you'd said the wrong thing. That version is detailed. It feels real, but it's yours, not hers. And trying to stop also doesn't work the way you'd expect. Psychologist Daniel Wegner showed this directly. When people try hard not to think about something, the thought rebounds stronger the moment the suppression lifts. Every time someone told you to just stop worrying about it, every time you told yourself the same, you were setting up the thought to flood back harder. You were trying to solve overthinking by overthinking about overthinking. That's not a character flaw. That's just how the system works. If you're the person who found this at midnight, or who's going to re-watch part of it tomorrow because something landed too accurately, this is for you. You didn't get this way because something was wrong with you. You got this way because something worked. Once. In a context where scanning the room and reading tone and staying one step ahead kept you okay. Your brain did exactly what a brain does with the information it had. It's just still doing it. In the wrong decade. The goal isn't a quieter mind. Chasing that mostly adds another layer of exhaustion on top of what's already there. The goal is a different relationship with what's already happening. Learning to catch the loop mid-run and ask it a real question. What are you protecting me from right now? And does that threat still exist? Most of the time, the answer is no. The email is fine. The comma was fine. And you, the version of you that notices the pause, that drafts and redrafts, that genuinely tries to get it right. That's also the version that catches things other people miss. That shows up. That cares. That's not something to fix. It's just running without a power down sequence. And you can work with that.